Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Jonathan Owen, who's the CEO of Metals One, who are an LSE-listed junior mining company who are developing brownfield projects in Finland and Norway, aiming to identify and define battery metal resources to supply an expanding European market. These metals have the potential to become strategic sources of battery metals for the European domestic market. Jonathan is an enterprising, highly resourceful and results-driven senior executive with over 25 years experience in building businesses, transforming operations and driving positive change within global mining and metal organisation. He's going to be sharing the story of Metals One, news of their recent sort of drilling program, the macro review of nickel, the nickel market, and recent news on the EU's Critical Raw Materials Act. So, Jonathan, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, Rob. Very well, thanks. Good to be with you.
And yourself. So, and for those that don't know you, I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about your career, about your background, maybe something that people don't know about you. So, yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So I'm a mining engineer, as you mentioned, fellow of the Geological Society as well. So, like a lot of people in this industry, sort of multi-skilled to a degree, and that's the way I like it. So I've been in the mining industry not for the full 25 years. Is really around sort of building businesses across a number of industries. I did my mining degree a little later than most. I had my midlife crisis in my 20s, so I went back to uni around about 27 years old and did my BEng at Camborne School of Mines. And that's after I did move from Camborne to the Falmouth campus, so part of University of Exeter. So exciting times then. Something that a lot of people don't know about me, I was actually in the army. I was an officer in the Territorial Army, the British Army, and my first degree is in physics. So that's not a lot of people know that. So quite a lot of experience across a range of disciplines and also territory. So I lived and worked in Africa for about 10 years. Took the family out to Tanzania. With Sandvik, so I was helping run Sandvik East Africa, so supporting the big mines out there, Bulyanhulu, Buzwagi, etc. These are the African Barrick gold mines, and then went across to the contracting side. I ran a mining contractor in Tanzania, running mining operations, drill, blast, load haul for Petra Diamonds, Resolute, the Golden Pride operation, contract drilling, etc. for African Barrick Gold, Buzwagi, and a bit of industrial minerals as well for Lafarge and etc. So, yeah, quite a broad range of experiences. Very exciting career, I have to say. And now Metals One is, the next step up, if you like, taking a company to market last year, July 2023. So this is coming up to our first anniversary, and we've achieved quite a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah. Before we speak about Metals One, obviously you're an ex-Camborne School of Mines graduate. I'm not sure if you've heard, but they are going to be restarting their mine engineering course in 2025. Yeah. Just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
It should never have stopped. No, I'm really pleased. It's a great institution. One of my sons is actually studying there at the moment. He's second year, just come up to his third year now. Exploration resource geologist, and I'm active as well with the association. So, no, really pleased to see it come back. The UK mining industry is developing again after a bit of a hiatus. There's plenty of projects and work, and people forget that also, the UK has some of the finest mining consultancies and based here and offering services globally. Plus, then you also have a lot of foreign students coming to Camborne as well, or that had been coming to Camborne, like the Debswana guys would come across and do their BEng at Camborne. Hopefully that restarts, and it's good for the university. It's good for the region. It's good for our industry in the UK and abroad.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll be getting Pat Foster on, who runs the school, the mining school, on the podcast, so he can tell us a little bit more about that. So hopefully that'll be coming up soon.
Definitely.
So
there's another fact you didn't know. So Pat Foster was my tutor when I was there. So
okay.
Yeah, and he wasn't much older than me at the time, which was peculiar. But that's being a mature student for you.
Yeah. Right, so I wonder if one of you can just give us a snapshot of Metals One and the story behind the company.
Yeah, so what kicked off Metals One? So this is a few years ago now. So this is 2020, 2021. There was a report that came out by the EU. It's called the Roskill Report, and it highlighted this growing chasm between the supply and the demand of particularly battery metals in Europe, particularly nickel. So burgeoning demand growing with the adoption of electric vehicles, EVs, but then pretty limited domestic supply. There's only a couple of nickel producers in Europe. One of them is our neighbour, Terra Fame. And so the conclusion of the report was, you're getting your nickel from Russia, you're getting it from Chinese subsidized Indonesia, you're getting it from all sorts of places that that are high risk in terms of supply chain, whether that's political or just the distances covered. And there is a real need to find more nickel in Europe for the OEMs in Europe, and so that was our sort of calling card. It was right, okay, let's go and follow this opportunity. And then shortly after, the EU announced that we're going to bring in legislation now to force OEMs, so Stellantis, BMW, VW, etc., to source at least 10% of their input materials, nickel, copper, cobalt, from within Europe. So then there was the real investment opportunity here to go and build a business. So that's what we did. We set up Metals One. We obviously needed a couple of projects, so we acquired the Norwegian Rana project off an Australian consortium. Then we acquired the Black Schist projects off Blue Jay in Finland, and in our focus to date has been on developing those assets and getting them into production as soon as possible. So it's a fast track business that we're in. It's to particularly to get the Finnish assets, the Black Schist projects, into production by 2030 to meet the EU benchmark for this 10% local supply.
Yeah, so obviously speaking about the projects, I wonder if you just tell us a little bit more about these projects in Finland and Norway. And I suppose what significantly does this have in terms of obviously the company's strategy moving forward? Yeah.
So I'll touch on the Norwegian project first of all, the Rana project. So this is still an exploration phase. So the Rana project, it's an intrusion of massive nickel sulfide just outside the town of Narvik in northern Norway. Narvik's quite famous from the Second World War, where the Brits came in and helped kick out the Nazis, and it's also Norway's most northerly port that doesn't freeze over. So it's a major port for LKAB, for example. The iron ore gets shipped out of there. So it's a great location in terms of infrastructure. And then the asset itself, the intrusion, has been historically mined by Outokumpu. So we've got the old Bruven mine, which is now closed, sitting within our tenements, and we're really looking for the other lenses of nickel sulfide in that area. It's quite a famous ore body for particularly nickel specialists, nickel geologists. It is seen as an analogy to Voisey's Bay in terms of its metallurgy, its setting, and also potentially in its size as well. So, if one day this becomes the next Voisey's Bay, which is Vale's sort of world-class mine over in Canada, then that'll be a real company changer for us. So, but like I say, it's early stage exploration. We're going through the paces. We JV'd with Kings Roads Mining, listed ASX. Amazing team, very professional, diligent. They're about to start drilling now in August or September. on that asset. And they drilled it last year, had some really good intersections. We expect to see more of the same this year. And like I say, quickly move this through the gears towards probably an inferred resource at some stage in the near future. My focus operationally is very much on the Finland assets, on the black schist assets, which are in sort of southeast Finland. These are more mature in the sense that we now have 2 inferred resources. So it's one project with multiple potential operations, potential pits, and we've got inferred resources on 2 so far, of around about 30 million tons each. We've got more in the pipeline, and we want to get these into production, generating free cash flow as soon as possible by, like I said, 2030. So if you look at it from a sort of project management perspective, you do your countdown schedule to get to 2030. It means we've got to be busting a gut right now to get through the various studies and so on, which is what we're doing. So we're about to kick off the scoping study for that project, the preliminary economic assessment. That's about to kick off, and hoping to get that done by the end of the year. And that's obviously an important indicator for the economic viability of the project. That'll highlight the opportunity there. But segueing onto the sort of EU legislation, it also opens the door for us for what they call strategic project status. So the EU have put in place this legislation I referred to earlier, this Critical Raw Materials Act, which is all about securing domestic supplies of these critical minerals for the European market. Being less reliant on Indonesian nickel, on the Russian nickel, which has now been sanctioned, etc. And what that brings with it is opportunity for EU grants, so non-dilutive funding, rather than us having necessarily to go to the market and raise money and dilute existing shareholders, which should give us access to that. But also, more importantly, probably is the permit fast tracking. As you know, in a lot of jurisdictions, the permitting for a new mine can take quite a long time. And in the States, you've seen like Resolution Copper, etc. I think that's been going through permitting for 20 years now. This legislation puts a cap on that, 24 months or 28 months. Your permitting will be in place, and you can get going. You can start digging and producing. So the PEA is really the ticket to get that status, and all that opens up for us.
And how comes the permitting is that short compared to obviously other jurisdictions? Is it obviously by country, and they've identified that the permitting needs to be tighter and not drag out as long?
Yeah, it's going to change. So the EU legislation is sort of it's like an umbrella, and then each country then will interpret it and implement it, to fit their specific needs. So Finland is yet to define exactly what that is, but in Finland the permitting process isn't onerously long in any case. But where the delays tend to be is around the rezoning. So it's like changing the planning use of a building from residential to business. It's kind of like you do the same with land. It's currently says forest or agricultural. You need to go through a rezoning process with the municipality to get that changed to mineral extraction. That can take quite a bit of time. It's bureaucracy, and then you can sometimes have someone sitting in an armchair in Helsinki that's never stepped foot anywhere near the region, put in an appeal saying, "Oh, that's not right. We shouldn't be mining anything," which is ridiculous. And you need strategic minerals to support a green transition. So those things can crop up. So that permit legislation is all about shortening that, and the zoning and the appeals processes as well.
Let's, I suppose, talk about the macro view, and obviously particular in nickel. Obviously, we've seen Indonesia flood the nickel market. What does this mean for other producers, and also what's it mean for Metals One?
Yeah, no, good point. And it's we've seen a lot of mines closing in Australia. That in the headlines recently, and over the last year or so. We've seen Ravensthorpe close, Nickel West, BHP recently closed Nickel West for the next couple of years. They're the first casualties of Indonesian nickel flooding the market. It's tough. A lot of people have been people lost their jobs and scratching their heads in Australia right now in terms of what's next. But to put it in context, these mines typically, such as the Wailu mine that closed last year, these are quite often legacy, quite old legacy mines, high operating costs, and typically would be the first casualties with as a price drops to close. So there are a percentage of the supply base is closed. Whether it's going to affect the price of nickel, I doubt it, given that Indonesians already producing, I think it's 50% of the world's supply. It is an unfair advantage the Indonesians have. While us in the West, in Europe and Australia, are voluntarily following strict environmental and social guidelines, ensuring that what we do is, it supports communities, it doesn't destroy communities. Meanwhile, Indonesia is bulldozing fishing villages into the sea. The environment, there's no environmental or social safeguarding going on at all. It's kind of a free for all. So meanwhile, it's all powered by Chinese coal-powered power stations. So you're looking for nickel to support a green transition or digital transition. You want lowest carbon footprint nickel material or copper or whatever it might be. That's certainly not Indonesian nickel. In terms of where it puts us as Metals One, so we're lucky, and this is one of the attractions to the black schist project for us initially, was that there's an existing mining operation that's already mining the black schists that's doing extremely well, and that's the Terra Firma operations, the Sukamo mine just down the road. They're mining the same mineral as us. They might be mining it a few years now, and they've demonstrated that they can produce that at the lowest carbon intensity globally. So that I think Indonesian nickel is around about 58 tons of CO2 per ton of nickel. Terra Firma are producing it at around about just over 1 ton of CO2 per ton of nickel. So it's like 95% lower carbon footprint. And meanwhile, they're generating 35% EBIT profit quarter on quarter when nickel is apparently on its knees. So, they are probably the lowest cost producer as well in the world. Would outcompete Indonesia any day of the week. So, and that's what we're modelling our business on. That's operationally, it's going to be very similar, easy, shallow, open pit mining, truck and shovel with bio heap leaching, which is hugely efficient as well. You're looking at 97% recoveries on the nickel, which is pretty phenomenal. So low cost, low carbon cost as well.
I wonder if you can just tell us about some of the key points from the EU's Critical Raw Materials Act. And I know you obviously you're fully aware of what the Materials Act is all about. And I suppose what does it mean to obviously mine developers like yourselves?
Yeah, well, again, it's in the context of global competition, and and it's not fair competition. Like we just discussed, Indonesia. It cuts a lot of corners to produce at the price that it produces at, but it's also heavily subsidised by China, who've got deep pockets and strategy to scoop up these assets all over. So the playing field's definitely skewed. So something like the Critical Raw Materials Act coming along, it's really an incentive for explorers and mine developers and producers in Europe to ramp it up in terms of their activities and bringing more production online locally, domestically. And it's far more than just intent. There's some teeth in there as well. Like I mentioned, it's the permit fast tracking, which is many people's first objection to mining in Europe. It's going to take years to build a mine. Well, no, it's going to take a few years. It's going to take 3 or 4 years, and most of that time is actually going through the feasibility study. We do the permitting in parallel to that. And then you have the potential for EU-backed financing as well, which is a huge thing. It's the cost of capital from EU financing or grants is far lower than us having to go to the market, and whether that's equity-based financing or debt-based financing or royalty agreements, that can be quite onerous and expensive. So all those opportunities open up, and then the other sort of third piece that's not sure if it's actually part of the Critical Raw Materials Act or is it a sort of spin-off from it, is the battery passport. This is basically a digital twin for EV batteries or any large battery. So you can imagine this is a sticker on the side of the battery, basically, that tells you, the consumer, where your materials have come from, what the carbon footprint of the battery is, what's the sustainability of the sources of the materials, etc. So that comes into enforcement in 2027. But I saw a couple of weeks ago that Volvo have actually jumped the gun there and decided we're going to adopt this, and they're about to start using this battery passport. And again, coming back to what's it mean for European mining companies or exploration companies, it means that this is now we have a mechanism where the consumer can put pressure on the OEMs, on the car producers, to give them what they want, which is, I'm going to buy an EV because I believe in in a better future, sustainable future for myself and my children, my grandchildren. You're selling me the stuff from Indonesia. It's got 57 tons of carbon per ton of nickel. Well, that's not acceptable. I want locally sourced, sustainable sources of my materials, where the supplier, is working with the community, not against the community, and is cognizant of the effects of the environment. And yeah, this is what it'll do for us.
I wonder if we talk about some of the ESG initiatives that you're implementing as a business, obviously, on some of your projects. I wonder if you can just highlight a couple of key initiatives that you're actually working on.
Yeah, so it's a little early stage to sort of get for us to be sort of arms deep in the social engagement interaction. So as we go through now, we go through the preliminary economic assessment. This is where the rubber hits the road in terms of the community interaction and the flow of ideas and understanding about what we're doing starts to take shape. And then as you go through into the feasibility studies, where you're actually doing the front end engineering, you're deciding specifically where waste is going to go or your heap leach pad is going to go. Then it's a lot more interaction. You set up committees, etc., with the communities. But for us, we've got a great relationship with the municipalities around our projects. These are communities, quite rural communities, that have suffered a sort of an outflow of people, basically of GDP out of these areas and into the big cities, and they're really desperate for employment opportunities to retain people in communities, keep the communities together, bring new people, particularly younger people, back into these regions. And so they're very supportive of what we're doing. Now, in terms of initiatives, I mean, we don't have specific initiatives per se, but we do have regular engagements with the communities. It's all about, really, for us at the moment, sharing what we're doing, making it transparent, and preventing sort of runaway imaginations about what this could mean in a negative sense. So it's hugely important. Social license to operate is number one. I think it's as important, if not more important, than the quality of your ore body.
Yeah.
And
I suppose lastly, what's the outlook for the sort of short to medium term outlook, the next 6 to 12 months? And is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, for us, it's a hugely busy time, and it'll continue to be. And like I say, we about to kick off the preliminary economic assessment, and we need to move quite quickly on the back of that then next year into the pre-feasibility study. So that basically tightens up the economics of the preliminary study that we do, so it becomes far more accurate, and then we move into the feasibility study. In parallel to that, we're kicking off the environmental baselining and the ESG side of things as well, social engagement, social baselining that's needed to be done as well. In terms of the market, it's going to be an interesting one. I think nickel is because that's really our primary commodity, and copper. But if you look at nickel, it's going to be a pretty stable 2024 in terms of nickel price. So it's going to hover around about $18,000 a ton. I think the Indonesians have admitted that they don't really they can't really produce it or sell it for less than that. So that's the floor, I think, $17,000 to $18,000 a ton. And then I think next year, as you know, EV growth is still growing 24% year on year. It's going to that demand for nickel, particularly class 1, high quality nickel sulfate, will continue to rise through well beyond 2030. So it's all rosy. It's been a tough. I think it's been a tough year for all in the mining industry. But I'm sure it's going to turn a corner this year. Interest rates will come down in the UK. Interest rates hopefully will come down after the election in the States, and that'll drive investment in the commodity market.
Yeah, that's what we're all hoping. That's what we're all hoping for. Everyone I speak to are signalling the same. And it has been a tough year, especially for the junior sector. People trying to raise capital for their projects. So, hopefully we've got a positive outlook as the second half of this year progresses going into 2025.
Agreed.
Yeah. Jonathan, appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story, telling us about the Metals One and the story behind the company. And obviously wish you well for the remainder of the year. And hopefully you can come on the podcast next year and give us an update on that pre-feasibility study.
I look forward to it, definitely. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, actually, I also forgot to ask you about your social media. If people want to follow your story and follow Metals One, what social media platform channels are you on?
Yeah, so quite active on Twitter. So personally and the company. So hashtag MET1, MET numeral 1, and LinkedIn as well, of course. So quite active there. In terms of messaging on both, I tend to sort of focus on general public through Twitter, and then more sort of industry, such as ourselves in terms of our messaging and the stories we share on LinkedIn. That's a sort of a B2B platform, I think. And then we have a Telegram channel as well, which you're welcome to. Again, just search Metals One, and we'll be top of the list.
Yep, we'll include those in the show notes so people can have easy access to that. Yeah, thank you again, and we will speak next year.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Appreciate your continued support. As always, please keep sharing these episodes far and wide. And as obviously Jonathan's alluded to, the projects they're working on is for the green revolution, where a lot of these commodities are needed to generate materials to build the next generation of infrastructure, all things mobile phones, computers, cars, anything battery, electric related. So please keep sharing this to people outside of the mining industry so they get to understand what mining is about and what's involved in this whole energy transition. So thank you for listening, and until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.